without further delay, let's get our first speaker up here on virtual stage, who's going to be Kenneth Refsgaard from Inside It by Gainsight. So Kenneth, come on up, and we're really looking forward to hearing from you today. Hello.
Hi, Ilker. Thank you so much.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Fantastic. Very, very well. And it's even better that, we're now up together on this virtual stage, talking to community aficionados from four corners of the world. Where are you connecting from?
I'm sitting here in beautiful Amsterdam.
Fantastic. And definitely it's one of the great community and business centers of Europe. And I'm actually connecting from the same continent, and I'm just going to do a little bit of guesswork for the participants. I'm actually connecting from the only city on the planet where two continents meet. So let's see if anybody guesses, and as a bonus, if they can write where they're connecting from. So certainly the virtual stage and the virtual element of this particular event has just brought us all together, and has given us the opportunity to talk to a lot of people, lots of community professionals and would-be community professionals around the world. And what a session to start with, a session that is so close to my heart, which is going to be about community strategy. So you are the Community Strategy Director at Inside It by Gainsight. And your session is titled, My Community Needs to be at the Heart of Your Customer Success Strategy. And really, really important session and really important matters, because community used to be part of customer success previously, wasn't it?
Community was
part of customer success as a department previously in the old times. So they are very, very closely connected.
Well, that's exactly what my talk is going to be about. And I think, well, in a second I'm going to dive in. I think community is absolutely at the heart of customer success. It used to be at the heart of support, and it's really evolved into the heart of the customer success movement. And that's what we are super focused on and excited. So looking forward to sharing more.
Fantastic. Without further delay, I know you have a packed presentation for us, full of great information. So the virtual stage is all yours, and it is great to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Ilker. Great. So let's see if I can get my slides up as well. There they are. Okay, wonderful. All right. So thank you everybody for joining today. So as Ilker said, my name is Kenneth. I am super excited to be back at CMX this year. Over the next 25 or so minutes, I'm going to be speaking about community and how it relates to customer success. So specifically, how community is at the heart of so many amazing customer success programs around the world, in so many B2B SaaS companies. And then I'm going to go into a number of hopefully practical, useful steps and principles that you can utilize and hopefully take away and apply. Really all about how you can get community to the heart of your customer success strategy. So let's dive right in. Here we go. So very, very short intro from me. Like I said, I'm sitting here in beautiful Amsterdam. I work at Inside It, and we are part of the Gainsight family since the beginning of this year. I have previously been working at quite a few different companies for quite a lot of years around communities. And if you look at this photo, this says everything you need to know about my personal life this year. I just became a father, and it's absolutely the most amazing thing. Let's dive right in. So as I mentioned, I work Inside It. We're part of the Gainsight family since the beginning of this year, and we are super focused on the space of B2B SaaS and customer success. We are really happy to be working with some amazing companies, some amazing brands. You can see a few of them here on the slide in this space. And I think one of the biggest things that we have noticed, observed, experienced over the last couple of years is simply this, that communities are absolutely booming right now, especially within B2B SaaS and customer success. Now, this isn't something which everybody necessarily saw coming, I think, a few years back, because I think there was a period a few years back when there was a lot of excitement around different social media channels and, new social platforms coming. And some folks were getting a little bit pessimistic about, the future of communities as we knew them at the time. Were they in decline? And what has happened the last few years is the opposite. Communities are growing explosively again, especially within the space of B2B SaaS, something we're super excited about. Now, why is this happening? Why are we seeing this explosive growth? Now, I think it's worth taking just a couple of moments to reflect on how this has come to be. So if we look back, those of us who've been around for a few years or more, like myself, will know that the early wave of enterprise communities for companies were tended to be very much focused on support. It was about support organizations discovering that communities were extraordinary places for scaling support, for having customers find useful content, help each other, and ultimately, reduce costs. To really help scale support. And this is the value of this was proven over and over again. And honestly, today it's still a very important use case. A lot of companies out there are still building amazing communities with this as a focus. But this has been around a while, so this doesn't explain the explosive growth of just the last couple of years. So it must be something else that's going on. Well, something happened, of course, where support organizations started to evolve and customer engagement started to evolve more towards customer experience. This was a movement where we started to think more holistically about the customer journey, about all the different touch points that a customer has in their experience. And of course, community is one of those touch points. And this was a important movement and kind of a revolution in how we think about customer engagement. But in this phase, communities themselves didn't actually change all that much, is what we've seen. Most communities for enterprise were still primarily there with a kind of a support focus. So this also doesn't explain the explosive growth and the excitement that we're seeing in this space at the moment. So what is it that's changed? So what is that one thing that has really caused all of this? Well, it is, of course, SaaS. SaaS is what has happened. So subscription-based is now everywhere. We see it in all kinds of industries. And specifically when we look to the software and technology space, SaaS has really transformed what it takes to grow and to build and grow a successful business. It's no longer enough just to sell. It is now so critical to maintain an ongoing relationship with customers and really focus on retention, keeping customers happy, and also, make sure that they're adopting the platform and having, a great experience and getting what they need out of your product. Now, this gave birth to the movement that today is known as customer success. And at Gainsight, customer success is, of course, very, very close to our hearts. And we often use this very simple formula to explain the essence of customer success, which to us is a combination of customer experience on the one hand, which we've already talked about, but then in combination with customer outcomes. So the value that you get out of the platform. So these things in combination, which again touches on, adoption of the platform, understanding the best practices, really getting everything you can out of the platform, is at the heart of customer success. And so as SaaS companies have all around the world built out their CS organizations, they primarily, of course, start with customer success managers. This has been the birth of a beautiful new discipline that I've also worked in the last few years. Really enjoyed that, where customer success managers go out and work with customers directly and ensure that they are having the experience, great experience, but also adopting the platform, learning, getting value, getting the outcomes they want, right? So as SaaS companies all around the world have been doing this, and as they then grow, there is one question that always comes up, inevitably. Every single organization starts to face this question, and that is, how do we scale? How are we going to scale this over time? And you can, of course, hire more CSMs. You can also have more customers per CSM. And these are both very good and valid things to do, and are probably going to be part of the plan for most SaaS organizations. But it's not going to be enough. When you're really growing, you cannot just continue to scale linearly only by doing these two things. So SaaS leaders start to think about other ways to scale. And of course, they start to think about what you can do in the digital sphere. They start to think about the challenge of scaling, and they also start to think about other kinds of challenges. So for example, there may be some great digital resources available, but that experience is often fragmented. They might be missing an effective one-to-many communication channel, or really needing to manage product feedback in a more effective way. So, as SaaS leaders look to these challenges and look for ways to address it, you get into this amazing world of digital CS, where there is automation and emails, but more and more it becomes obvious that community can play an extraordinarily important role in helping to address a lot of these challenges. One more principle that's really at the heart of everything that we do with community and customer success is this next one, where I know when I was working as a CSM with customers from all kinds of segments, one of the most common questions I got was this: hey, great that we have a CSM, you guys are great, great that we have support, but what I really want to do is I want to talk to somebody that's in a similar situation to me. I want to learn from others like me. And this, of course, goes right to the heart of what community is. And this is, one, I think, the most essential points for why community is just becoming so important for customer success teams around the world. So I've just touched on a few themes and a few challenges that are driving this. And, basically what we are seeing is that if you look to B2B SaaS companies today and customer success organizations, community is increasingly that top strategic priority. It is so important. And what that means in essence for a customer success approach is this: that you have on the one side your CRM, you have your CS platform, and that's going to be the place where your employees are going to log in and do their work. So then where do your customers go? Well, the community then becomes that destination for your customers to go to find everything that they need and achieve all the things that they need to achieve. So community, of course, includes things like Q&A and discussion. But our vision and where we see this going towards is that more and more the community becomes a hub for everything that the customer needs. That includes helpful content, articles, a place to share product feedback, a place where you can find groups and events and meet others. It becomes the primary place where you go as a customer, kind of healing that fragmented journey that we touched on earlier. So this in a nutshell is kind of a description of how we see community becoming such an important part of customer success. So let's look at what this means in a little bit more detail. So, in practice, how do we actually do this? How do we do this in more practical terms? We're going to highlight over the next few minutes 10 fundamental things that we observe that are really, really important to consider if you're starting a community program linked to customer success, or if you're already on the journey. Hopefully, you're going to find some helpful takeaways here. So let's dive in. First of all, one of the first questions we get whenever we work with customers around building a community, often the first question is, hey, what kind of organization do I need? Do I need a team? Where does that team need to sit? Who do I need to hire? And I think the essence of this question, the answer really comes back to how you start anything new within an organization, right? So if you're starting any kind of new discipline like customer success, it very often starts with just one person raises their hand and says, hey, I want to go and make this thing happen. Let's get started. And community is no different. We typically see that a community program will start with just one person that increasingly will be somebody within customer success, but it doesn't have to be. It could be somebody sitting in product or marketing. In the beginning, it doesn't really matter that much where you're sitting, but just somebody that starts to dedicate their time to building out this program. You don't need to have all the answers for the org when you start. So that may be a dedicated role in the beginning, but it may not be a dedicated role. It may just be somebody that puts on that hat saying, hey, I'm going to start driving this. I'm going to start, driving this as a community manager. Now, as your program gets started and starts to evolve, naturally, there's going to be evolution and iteration. And then you're going to, of course, start to see creation of dedicated roles. If you didn't already have it, you can start to create dedicated roles. And over time, add more specialized roles. For example, you may find yourself wanting to create, specialized roles around content creation or around moderation or even around data or, the technical side, the operations side. We have customers that have teams of one. We have customers with teams of 20 or 30 people. So the key thing is that you don't have to solve everything from the start. Your community organization can grow organically. You can take small steps in that direction. Second thing, which we think is really helpful to keep in mind when you're starting, is to first, when you're building out your program, first look to what your priorities are within your CS organization, right? What are the pain points, the opportunities that are really top of mind for your organization? So, and then map those to the community use cases, right? So for example, on this slide, we have 5 of the most important use cases that we see for community when we're talking about customer success. So you could, for example, be in a situation where, from a CS perspective, your priority is, hey, we really need to scale our support work. We need to scale our support, and maybe we also really want to tackle our product feedback loop. You would then take those 2 use cases and make them your focus, your priority, and you can build out your plan and your strategy based on that. We find it's not often a great idea to go out and try and do everything right from day one. It's really, really smart to focus on what are your top priorities as an organization, and then focus your community plan on those things and get those things nailed first. Next one, I already mentioned that, when you start out with a community program for customer success, it may start within the customer success team. It isn't necessarily the case. It could start also from product or marketing, but community is going to be an amazing opportunity to break down silos, because ultimately a community is going to touch all parts of the organization, especially these 3 fundamental teams. So wherever a community sits as you're starting out, it's a really good idea from the very beginning to get folks together across the organizations and talk about what this program is, what it means, and what it's going to be able to do for product, for marketing, and CS. It's a great opportunity to start breaking down those silos and then to build a working group, a collaboration, a group of folks, who are going to be advocating and championing this program across the company. Now, when it comes to the platform that you're going to choose, we're a little bit biased here, of course, but this is a kind of also a more general recommendation. We do think it's important when you're building a community for customer success to look to enterprise capabilities. And so I think what we mean by that is that you're going to want to have the flexibility to build out that customer hub that we've talked about, which is going to be really tailored to your audience and your product. You want to be able to create something that is really going to be right for you and your product and your audience. So you want that flexibility. And at the same time, you don't want to be worrying about the technology too much. You don't want to be, hosting and managing upgrades and dealing with a lot of, technical stuff. So we would recommend, definitely look towards a true SaaS enterprise platform where all the technical stuff is taken care of for you, and you can really focus on building out the community itself. In terms of capabilities, there is, of course, the core community capability of discussions and Q&A. But if you're looking to build out this hub, that's the heart of the journey for your customers, it's really good to think about what you're going to need over time. So for example, it's very powerful to be able to also host helpful content in the form of articles, to be able to highlight and host events and groups, and to be able to manage your feedback loop in a really effective way in your platform. So those are core capabilities that are going to be really potentially very important for you. And think also about integrations. Think about, are you going to be able to easily integrate your community to your tech stack? And are you going to be able to embed the content in your community in your application and other places like that? So main takeaway here, enterprise community capabilities are going to be important. Now, I already mentioned this theme that is something that we really believe in. It's a big part of our vision, which is to position, your customer success focused community as the central destination. It's the primary place where your customers can go to find what they need. So the community itself may be the place directly where you have, of course, Q&A and some documentation and a lot of other great stuff. And you may still have other resources as part of your ecosystem. You may have docs or, an LMS or, other resources, but you can make the community the heart of the journey. So the community is the main place where your customers go. And you can then, link out or integrate to your other platforms with, for example, a federated search or something like that, to bring that journey together and make it really cohesive. You'll see on this slide, there's a point here about connection to your CRM and CS tool. Now, that's something we emphasize as well. We think is really important, because when you have community as part of your customer success strategy, you're going to be able to get content and data from the community that you don't get anywhere else. So a couple of examples here, for example, is that the way and the extent to which your customers engage in the community is going to tell you something about their level of engagement generally. And it's really powerful to take that data, connect it to your CS tool, and enrich your customer health scores with that data. So you have another level of insight into how your customers are doing in terms of engagement. And then in terms of content on the community, one of the wonderful things is they're going to be talking about your product. They're going to be sharing what they think, what they feel. And that is content that you can feed into your CRM and your CS systems, put in front of your teams, especially in front of your CSMs. It's going to give you insights that you otherwise wouldn't have. And very similarly with product feedback, specifically, any product ideas that they are creating or voting on, feed that back into your systems, get it in front of product team and your CSMs, and you're going to have so much more insight than you would otherwise have. Now, when you build community for as part of customer success, you don't want the community to exist in a silo, right? So the community ideally really becomes integral to how you do customer success. So one of the things we highly recommend is to look through all of your playbooks and all of your processes and find the right places where you can integrate the community, where you can highlight what the community is and what it's doing. So a few examples here. So for example, when you're onboarding a customer into your product, also onboard, customer into community, highlight what the community is and what it can do for them. Highlight useful community content in various campaigns. And a really interesting one is to when you have an EBR, when you're actually meeting with customers face-to-face or one-to-one, highlight community engagement there as well, and start to blend that online and offline engagement with your customers. Now, this last point is so important. It really deserves a slide of its own. So we look at this possibility of blending online and offline. We can just look to what we're doing right here today. So I'm sitting here in Amsterdam joining this amazing CMX event. We have folks in person, and we have folks dialing in from all around the world. Now, this today feels like it's totally normal. It is the new normal. This is some of the stuff we have learned collectively over just the last few years since the epidemic. And it's really, really powerful. So when you have a community and you start to incorporate it as part of customer success, you can incorporate it with events like we're doing today, but also for those more direct CSM conversations and EBRs. Think about how your CSMs are going to be able to scale engagement with kind of weaving in customer roundtables, industry discussion groups as part of their conversations with customers. Kind of going back to that, important question from earlier, right? Like, so many customers want to connect with others like themselves. Well, community is going to arm your CSMs with an amazingly powerful way to make that happen. Now, this next one is, this pyramid is for segments, is something a lot of us will have seen many times in different forms. And the thing we want to highlight here is that there is potentially a small pitfall when you start looking at community in terms of customer success, where you might think, okay, community is going to be the thing that we do for tech touch, for low touch, and, it's going to be, for those who don't have a CSM, and high touch is all going to be, super enterprise CSM. Now, that is not how we see it. That's not how we have experienced this, and it's not how our customers are tending to approach this. What we're finding is that community is incredibly important for all segments within a customer success approach. The nuance here is that there may be some emphasis, some difference in emphasis, where, for example, a tech touch segment, you may emphasize support and education a little bit more, simply because the community is the primary place for those customers to go for those use cases. And then on the other hand, with your most high touch customers, they may have an amazing dedicated, CSM and support capability. And so with those customers, you maybe are emphasizing the networking and the advocacy elements a little bit more. But the main takeaway here is, community is for all segments. It's really powerful, and it's going to be appreciated by everyone, all of your customers. Now, finally, we have this very important question of measurements. And this is a topic, of course, we could spend days talking about. And I'm only going to have a few seconds here today to talk about it. Now, it is really important to track what the community is doing as part of your customer success plan and report on that internally. We highly recommend that. And I think one of the most important things we wanted to share here is that you've connected your community plan to your core customer success ambitions, goals already, like we talked about earlier. And then to report on that value, really report on data points that demonstrate the value that community is having for your customer success plans. So whatever use case you're focusing on, so some examples here from some of our case studies, we have, for example, Mixpanel that have looked at how community engagement influences retention. Beautiful data point. And Cognite, who have looked at product ideas and how much of the amazing feedback they get on communities actually being developed. These are just examples of really powerful value-focused metrics that our customers are reporting. So if you're interested in this kind of stuff, we highly recommend going to our site and looking at some of the other case studies we have. We have a lot of these. They're really great to read. And I am checking the time because we are actually at the end of our 10 steps. And I think I am close to the end of my time as well. So just to kind of recap here are the 10 themes I wanted to highlight. It's been a whirlwind tour. Wanted to cover a lot in this quite short session. So yeah, I hope you've gotten something out of what I've talked about today, some takeaways, something to think about. I didn't know if we would have time for one or two questions, but it looks like we have a little bit more time than I thought. So Ilker, I'm curious if you have some questions for me from the chat.
Thanks very much, Kenneth. That's been a fantastic presentation, and it's some great points. And it looks like there were a lot of people who were very curious to hear what you wanted to say, what you wanted to share about the intersection between community and, of course, customer success. So I'm just checking. Definitely a lot of interest in the matter, and a lot of great, cool people have actually joined, and they're all saying thank you, which is just great. And it's been inspiring, it's been great, and it's been very informative, and that's just great. So because we have a little bit of time, we have the opportunity to answer any of the questions that you may actually have. So if you do have any questions, please fire away while Kenneth is here, and they were able to get the answer from the right person to tell you about these two concepts working together. So that's just been great. So it looks like everybody has been really, really happy and really, really quite happy and satisfied with the content there, which has just been great. Always difficult to talk in a short amount of time on these these massive encompassing subjects. So it looks like that is the case right now, and everybody's so happy.
Maybe I can share one small thing if folks are thinking of a question or folks are typing. If anyone has a question, would like to speak to us, we are there in person. So I'm not there in person, but quite a few of my amazing colleagues are there. So we're in booth 7. So do come by and talk to us. We would love to talk to you. And if you're joining virtually, we also have a virtual booth. So do come and chat with us there. You can also find me on LinkedIn if you want to chat about anything I've talked about. Super happy to connect and talk.
Fantastic. As we're actually talking about that, people have found the time to write a couple of questions. So Kelly Pratt is asking, say more about an ideal community team, which is great. So what would you say about that?
It's a very big question. The ideal community team. It's, as with so many things, the answer I think is it depends. It depends on your situation, of course, and because the ideal community team will look very different depending on where you're at in terms of scale, maturity, and so on. I think the most important thing is that you are covering all of your bases in the community team. So it becomes less about, which people and which roles you have in your team, but more about the capabilities and the roles you're fulfilling within the team. And those roles could be fulfilled by one person or 20 people like we talked about, right? So, within your team, you want to make sure that you are focusing on the more strategic level, that you have a great plan, that you are, really taking care of the community, from the slightly higher level strategic perspective, but also on the more operational level, that you are taking care of your members on a day-to-day basis. There's an element of administration, there's an element of reporting. So all of these disparate disciplines that come together that make community management so exciting can be handled by a single human being in some cases, or they might be handled by a number of very specialized individuals. So I think that the most important thing is that you find a way to cover these bases, that you don't have any gaps in terms of capability. And again, if you're missing, you can always find other people in the organization that can help to fill some of those gaps. That's maybe what I would share.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that answer. That's been great. And there's another question maybe we can squeeze in, which has actually got a lot of interaction from the audience. So Kathy's asking, how do you integrate community health into your metrics tracking? Again, another big subject there.
Yeah, that is a very big topic. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do it deep justice here in these next few minutes. But, I think, one of the ways we think about engagement from our perspective is, we often measure something that we call monthly active customers. This is one of the core engagement metrics for us as we look to communities in this space. So we look to see how many what percentage of your customers are actually engaging on the community on a monthly basis. That's a really, really good high-level engagement metric. And that is an example of the type of data that you could pull into your CS tool and weave into one of the health markers that make up your customer health score. So if you have an engagement health marker, you probably are going to be looking at more types of engagement, but this can then be one of the data points that you weave in to kind of evaluate what the level of engagement is from your customers. And of course, you would enrich this with other data sources, but it would really add something special to your score.
Cool. So maybe just one more question. I'll just squeeze that in especially for people who are trying to get into community management, which are so close to my heart. So Olin is asking, and it's got a lot of upvotes from the audience as well, 5 suggestions for the community manager beginner.
Ooh, 5 suggestions. Oh gosh, you're really on the spot here. Talk to other community managers. Look at a lot of communities. See what other folks are doing, learn about the discipline, and deepen your knowledge of some of these different parts of community management we already talked about, right? There's an element of project management, an element of data analysis. So kind of find out what some of those key disciplines are and deepen your knowledge. If you're kind of a little bit rusty, might be your Excel skills or, data analysis, could be anything like that. And 5th one, have an amazing time, because it's really, really fun stuff.
I think that was just a fantastic ending to the 5 suggestions. And I think we're just about out of time. So, Kenneth, it's just been wonderful, as expected. Certainly, the things that you've shared have been just absolutely so valuable for everyone, including myself. Thank you very much for sharing all of these. And, thanks for participating. Thanks for being here. And everyone, thanks for joining this presentation. And the next one is going to be in 15 minutes, once again, in this stage. So stay tuned. Hashtag CMX Summit. I hope you're having an amazing time already. What a great session to begin with. So we shall see you back in 15.